Greetings, I'm John Setzler. Welcome back to the Kamado Joe Cooking Channel. Today I've got something really cool we're going to try on the Kamado Joe Grill. But first of all, we're going to take a recipe from this book that I've discovered. This book is called the Kamado Smoker Grill Cookbook by Chris Grove. Chris is a food blogger that I've been following for quite a while. He's a phenomenal cook. He does a lot of really awesome grilling things, and he's finally put together this book. This book is an awesome companion for anybody with a Kamado grill. It teaches you a lot of really fantastic Kamado cooking technique, and it's packed with really good recipes. So we're going to take a sourdough bread recipe from this book with Mr. Grove's permission, and we're going to prepare it for you guys today on the Kamado Joe Classic. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do to make our sourdough bread is make a sourdough starter. And in a measuring cup here, I've got 2 cups of hot tap water that's about 110 degrees or so. I'm going to dump in 2 packets of active dry yeast, and we're going to get that dissolved in this water. And after we get that stirred in real good, we're going to just set that aside. Okay, in a larger mixing bowl, I'm going to put 2 cups of flour and 1/2 cup of sugar. And we're going to thoroughly mix all that up. And after we have that mixed up, we're going to dump in our 2 cups of water that's the yeast, that has the yeast dissolved in it. And then we'll mix this up completely. Okay, after we get our sourdough starter mixed up, we're going to transfer it to another container. You should use either glass or a food grade plastic container. This container I have here is a little larger than I need. It's 6 quarts, but you need enough space for your sourdough starter to at least double in size. So I'm going to dump this in this container. We're going to get it all in there, and we're going to let this sit uncovered at room temperature for 6 hours. After our yeast starter's had its 6 hours to get started, we're going to finish up making our dough here. I'm going to start with another 2 cups of warm tap water. We're going to add 1 pack of active dry yeast, and we're going to dissolve that completely. Next thing we're going to do is take a large plastic mixing bowl. We're going to add 1/3 of a cup of sugar, 1/2 a cup of canola oil. We're going to add in our yeast that's been dissolved in the 2 cups of warm water, and then we're going to add our 2 cups of our sourdough starter mixture that we pulled off, and we're going to mix this up and get that sugar dissolved. After we have that mixed up nicely, we're going to add 4 cups of flour, and then we're going to take a nice stiff spoon and mix this all together. After I've got that dough mixed up, I'm going to take another large plastic or non-metallic bowl. You can use glass if you like. I'm going to hit it with some spray oil, and then we're going to transfer our dough mixture into this bowl, and we're going to let this sit uncovered for an hour or so, and we're going to let that rise, and it should rise up almost to the top of the bowl. While our dough's rising, we're going to fire up the Kamado Joe Classic. I've got some charcoal here, and I've got 2 of the Kamado Joe fire starters. We're going to light both of those fire starters up and let this grill burn with the lid open for about 10 minutes or so. After we've got our fire going here, I've installed my accessory rack in the lower position, and then we're going to put both halves of the heat deflector right on top of the accessory rack. We're going to set up for indirect cooking today, and then we're going to set both halves of our Half Moon grill grates in the upper position. And we're going to be cooking at 350 degrees today, so I'm going to close the lid, and then I'm going to set my bottom vent at approximately halfway, and then I'm going to close the slider on the top vent all the way and leave the daisy wheel open, and we're going to monitor that as our temp comes up to 350, and we'll make any adjustments that we need to make up here, whether we need more or less air. We're going to do all of our adjustments from the top vent and leave the bottom vent where it is. Our dough has finished rising, so I've taken a large cutting board and I'm going to spread out here about a half a cup of flour onto this board, and then we're going to transfer our dough onto this board. And this is a wet dough, so be prepared for that. We're going to work that over just a little bit. We're going to kind of roll it around. We may have to add just a little bit of flour to this dough, and since this dough is really wet, I am going to add another half a cup of flour or so to that, and we're going to work that in. Okay, next thing we're going to do is I've got a couple of oversized stoneware loaf pans. We're going to grease these guys a little bit, and then we're going to cut our dough in half and put half of it in one pan and half in the other. After we've got the dough in the loaf pans, we are going to let it rise in the pan for another hour. Okay, our grill's had a chance to stabilize at 350 degrees, so we're going to set both of these bread pans on the grill, and we're going to close the lid and cook these for 35 to 45 minutes. And halfway through the cook, I'm going to come rotate the pans so we make sure we get a really nice even cook on these, and we'll be back then to have a look. Okay, we've been going for 20 minutes here. It's time to give these bread loaves a quick 180 degree flip in the pans. We'll close the lid back up and let these things go for another 15 to 25 minutes. We'll just keep our eye on them. Alrighty, we've been going right at 45 minutes, and this bread is nice and golden brown on top. So we're going to take this off the grill, take it inside, and I'll show you what we're going to do next. I've brought these loaf pans in and set them on a cooling rack, and we're going to baste the top of each of these loaves with a little bit of melted butter while it cools. We're going to let these cool off a good bit, then we'll take them out of the pan and we'll come back and hopefully have a really impressive taste test. Okay, I've taken these out of the pan. I probably should have made one really large loaf in these loaf pans. These loaves are a little thin because of the size of pan I used. I used a really oversized loaf pan, but this bread is just flaky. And it's still really warm too. I'm gonna slice a little piece off here. Man, I wish you could smell it. We're gonna have a taste of this. It's actually still steaming there. Wow, man, that looks good. Let's see what it tastes like. That bread has a beautiful flavor. Give this a try. Until next time, this is John Setzler with Kamado Joe Cooking Channel.